They gave up a fourth round pick. They're paying the veteran minimum. So when we all talked about his salary, that's meaningless. They got him for nothing.
And a good morning, Birds fans. It is a Thursday undefeated edition of Birds 365. Still undefeated. They didn't put it up for grabs this past week because we had a bye week. But anything but a bye week down at the NovaCare complex yesterday. Pretty busy for a rest day yesterday, wasn't it, Mr. McMullen?
Yeah, man, got to get back to work. I saw Howie walking after walkthrough. They have a walkthrough in the morning, real practice in the afternoon. Saw him walking with Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson, Fletcher Cox, and I put it on Twitter. I got a picture. I said, "Wow, that's some heavy hitters walking up from," in hindsight, maybe he was letting the team leaders in on what was about to happen, and that's Robert Quinn to your Philadelphia Eagles. So kind of a splash from a big name standpoint. That's what everybody wants, right?
Exactly. If you're just talking about reputation and career resume, oh, Robert Quinn is a big deal. That's a splash type trade. If you're talking about production this year in the first 7 games of the season, not so much. An 18 and a half sack guy last year, one of the best in the National Football League, down to one in the first 7 games this year for the Bears. I've read and heard the explanations of, oh, the new system doesn't fit what Robert Quinn does and his game and the like. And there's probably something to that. But I'm sorry, when you go from 18 and a half down to you want to prorate it, okay, that's about a third of your season, actually more. But we'll round up rather than round down. 3 sacks for the year, going from 18 and a half to 3 is a drop off. There's no way around that. Is Father Time finally catching up with Robert Quinn?
Yeah, I mean it's strange. It really is. We know, and I always say things don't stay in a stasis in this league, so you don't just assume somebody is going to be a star forever. I think way too many people believe in that, but you rarely see this kind of drop off from 1 year to 18 and a half down to basically zero production. I think Pro Football Focus has 112 edge defenders graded, Jody. 109. 109 out of 112 is how he's been playing this year. To go from second team All Pro to 109 out of 112 in one season, something's going on. So, you delve into it from a when the trade immediately happened, I was like, and when we had brought up this name, a lot of people brought up this name before. I admit you kind of forget there's a basketball mentality. It's not overtaking the NFL, but teams are more willing to pick up salary to get rid of a player, to dump a player, which hasn't been the case in the NFL, but it is more and more. Last year, you saw it with Von Miller. This year, you're seeing it Robert Quinn. From the Eagles' standpoint, they gave up a fourth round pick. They're paying the veteran minimum. So when we all talked about his salary, that's meaningless. They got him for nothing. So I like the trade from that standpoint. It's a nice roll of the dice. We talk about Howie and valuation. I mean, and when you talk about Quinn and the deep drop, you brought up one point that is a good point. They changed their whole philosophy. And he's going back to the previous philosophy. The Eagles run what the Bears ran defensively. Now, the Fangio offshoot. So that's the scheme he was in when he had 18 and a half. So that's good. And then the second part, somebody pointed out, and I think it was Doug Farrar. So I'll give him credit. He used to write for Sports Illustrated back in the day. I think Yahoo, a bunch of places. But he's been double teamed more than anybody else, more than guys like Micah Parsons and Nick Bosa, because Chicago has nothing else.
Yeah.
Nothing else. So he's never going to see a double team in Philadelphia. I mean, never going to see a double team in Philadelphia. So those are the two optimistic slants I could bring. And after I heard that, I have a little more, um, whether you want to call it excitement about the trade, maybe it makes more sense. Maybe it makes because at first I'm like you, Jody. I'm like, well, what the heck's going on with this guy? Fell off a table. I mean, just a collapse that is very, very rare. And there are some reasons that you can talk yourself into it. Um, and then the last point I'll say, he's got 2 more years on this deal, but no guaranteed money. So if it doesn't work, the Eagles can just walk away. And they paid the veteran minimum for half a season. So
Right.
low risk, high
He's a
reward.
rental is what he is.
Yeah. Low risk, high reward is what it is.
Low risk, not a no risk. A fourth-round draft pick's a fourth-round draft pick. It is what it is. We could go back. I could give you superstar players who were drafted after the fourth round. I can give you guys who were taken in the first round who turned out to be busts. So it is a early day 3 pick. Not necessarily early because I think the Eagles are going to be very good. So it'll actually be the end of the fourth round. So it is what it is. It wasn't like they picked them up off the scrap heap. They did have to give up draft capital to get them. Not high draft capital, but draft capital. And I'll tell you why I'll buy more into the double team explanation than the change of system explanation. Wasn't that same system in place for the Bears in 2020 when they first signed him?
Yes.
And how many sacks did he have in the 2020
Yeah, he said that
season?
weird what he have 2, I don't know.
2.
Yeah.
So he went from 2 to 18 and a half, back down to 1 in 7 games. You can blame it all. Oh, it's a system. We strived in the other system. We strived in the second year in the other system. He did diddly squat when they signed him for $70 million as a free agent going into the 2020 season. So I think that's an easy explanation. I don't know how much water it actually holds, but I've seen the same things you have, that he has been as a double team block as much as any other pass rusher in the National Football League, because nobody is afraid of anybody else on that Bears defensive front four. So that I will buy, and you are correct. He's not drawing double teams here in Philadelphia. The Eagles have way too many other guys on the front that you have to be more concerned about than a just added to the mix Robert Quinn. You can't say it's a bad trade because they only gave up a 4th-round pick. They're not paying him. The Bears are paying him. There is no cap hit to be dealt with down the road, because if they can't renegotiate his contract, he won't be back on the 2 years he's got left on his contract now. And we kind of touched on this yesterday about what what any trade would do to team chemistry. I'm not worried about that. And maybe I'm being overly optimistic to go there. I just think that this team, through 6 games and all of the offseason stuff you want to bring into it, I think they're really together as a unit. And I think that stems from Nick Sirianni and his coaching staff and Jalen Hurts as the quarterback leader of this football team. I don't think that will happen. I don't think they'll allow that to happen, that somebody will come in and mess with the chemistry or tear the chemistry apart. Oh, by the way.
Well, and I don't think this is that type of guy. I mean, from all accounts, he's a great teammate. And Roquan Smith broke down when he was told he was traded. So I don't think that part of it's going to be a problem. The only problem potentially from a, and I talked about this, is playing time. Guys get upset. So if somebody takes some playing time away from somebody else, that's my more concern than he's not a bad guy. He's not going to do anything from that standpoint. And the Eagles have a very strong leadership. And as I mentioned, not only Jalen Hurts, but the Jason Kelsey's of the world, the Brandon Grahams of the world, the Fletcher Coxes of the world. Very strong leadership group. So that part I don't think is going to be an issue. And the 4th-round pick, I don't give a flying black about a 4th-round pick for a Super Bowl contender. Now that's why the Chicago Bears, they should be collecting 4th-round picks, and that's what they're doing. Robert Quinn can't help them. They're a bad football team. He's going to a good football team, arguably the best football team in the NFC, at least. I don't give a rat's ass about a 2023 fourth round pick. So from that from the value standpoint, home run, Howie Roseman. No question about it. Not paying the guy. Chicago's paying him to pay here. So they bought a fourth round pick for a guy who can rush the passer. Now, on the field, even if everything works out and the double team explanation is a good one or the scheme explanation is a good one, this is another guy who, even when he was good, isn't a good run defender. So, we talked about the tackling issues. How many undersized guys are you going to put on the field? I keep saying it doesn't matter till it matters. But, when bad weather shows up in January or even Derrick Henry shows up, what are you just going to flip a switch? Somebody wants to run the football and somebody keeps it close. Now, maybe you combat that by going up by 2 touchdowns and taking the running game out of it. Or you're going to have to play a certain way. That would be my one concern. This team, and by the way, it's the rest of the vast majority of the NFL as well. Passing game. How do we stop the passing game? And the Eagles are in that category.
So Quinn is, because I see his measurements, he's not a big defensive end, but you would consider him undersized as well, added to the already undersized Eagles defense?
250-pound edge defender. Yeah, that's undersized.
Okay. He's a little on the undersized size. I'll buy that. Here's my only concern about the deal, and you've already said that I guess I'm putting slightly more value on the fourth round pick than you are. And I don't know. You and I both sat here yesterday and said, we don't think the Eagles really need to make a deal.
No, I still don't.
They're 6-0 for a reason. Yeah. They've been that good. Do they really need to go out and add another piece? So with the Quinn move we'll see what he brings. If he is still a viable pass rusher, he gets a couple sacks over the last 11 games of the season. So be it. We'll give Howie that much more credit. It is one pick out of, you only have so much draft capital. Every team has, everybody starts with the same exact thing, 7 picks on any given year. Everybody's got 7 picks. They're already down 1 next year because of other previous trades. This means they're down another one. I know they got 2 1s. They've also got 2 7s. And between the 2nd round and the 6th round, they've got 2 old picks. Yeah. So they're a little short on picks for next year. And will they be able, if they lose some of the guys, we know how many free agents they have this upcoming season. You have to find replacements for those guys. And you can either go with lesser priced free agents. You hope you can coach them up and get them up to speed and they can be reasonable replacements for the guys. Or you draft potential replacements. And they've got less bullets to fire next year because of the draft. And the one other thing, and this may turn out to be nothing, and it's pure speculation on my part, on anybody else's part. The only one who knows for sure is Howie Roseman. It's one less bullet they can fire in another direction. If there is a player that becomes available over the next 5 days, that's all we got left until Tuesday, 5 days left, that they would be better upgraded by, and it would take a 4th round pick to get them. Well, they don't have that 4th round pick anymore. And Howie plays the trade game quite well, working with other teams, as you pointed out a couple times now. They're not even paying him veteran minimum. They got the Bears to pay his big salary. So Howie does handle the trade negotiations well. Maybe somebody else shakes out in the next 5 days, becomes available after Sunday's game. Because the team loses, they say, all right, we're sitting on the fence as to whether we're going to trade a guy or not. They decide, okay, we're now going to make him available. The Eagles have already committed for a guy at a position where I think they were good as is. I didn't think they needed to upgrade it at pass rusher, at defensive end. They've decided to do just that.
Yeah.
That does scare me a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, and obviously you're not the biggest Derek Barnett fan. So when, obviously they had a plan and he went down with the torn ACL.
Johnny Mac, they could have suited you up to replace Derek Barnett.
I
They
know, but
wouldn't have had to give
let me
up
get to my
they
point.
wouldn't have to give up a 4th-round pick to get you.
It's not about Derek Barnett. It's about the plan. So, whatever that was, and we don't know because he got hurt so early. They had a rotational plan. You see it at defensive tackle. They go 5 deep. They wanted to go 4 deep. That's why I'm looking up now. Patrick Johnson kind of beat out Teron Jackson, and obviously Teron's gone now. That's who they cut to make room for Robert Quinn. We'll see if they get him back on the practice squad. That's going to be an interesting one to see if he gets through waivers because hasn't really done much. But people look at a 6-0 team and say, "Oh, well, maybe we'll take a shot at Teron Jackson." So they might get him back. They might not. Patrick Johnson played 15 reps against Dallas. His high was 28 at Washington, which was kind of a blowout game. So you figure obviously they didn't have as much confidence in him as Barnett's. So you figure maybe 20 was the plan. And Robert Quinn would fit into that 20. If he gets more than that, I don't know. For whatever reason, Jody, and this goes back years. Well, I know the reason with Brandon Graham because it's sacks. And now they got a sack guy. They got a finisher, right? So you see 18 and a half, you see 19. In his career, 102 total. Is he taking reps away from Brandon Graham? He better not. Is he taking reps away from Josh Sweat? He's not better than Josh Sweat. A lot of Eagles fans might think he is because of the name, but he's not. So that's my concern. Are they going to try to get him on the field a little bit too much? If it's 15, 20 reps, is he better than Patrick Johnson? Yes, of course. Of course. So from that standpoint, they're a better team. Does it prevent you to get a safety? I don't know how many safeties are out there. Maybe you can move Andre Dillard. Seems to be they have confidence in Jack Driscoll a little bit more, that if he's forced in there, maybe he can handle that. Tyree Jackson, they started his 21-day practice window. Brett Toth looks ready, but they don't have room for him. So maybe if they can move Andre Dillard, you start Brett Toth, and boom, you got another body. So they can go in a lot of different directions, and you can try to talk a team into 2024. That's more difficult, but Howie's good at convincing, especially these young general managers. He swindles them, and obviously Ryan Poles. He got Kwesi Adofo-Mensah earlier with Jalen Reagor. He swindles those young guys.
So I think it can't be a bad trade for the Eagles, but I'm not sure it's the knockdown, drop dead, unbelieve swindle. To use John's word.
Well, swindle in the fact that you get a 32-year-old veteran edge rusher for essentially nothing. In when you're a Super Bowl contender, like I said, a 4th-round pick is nothing because I'm worried about winning the Super Bowl. I'm not worried about a 4th-round pick in next April. So, again, from the Bears standpoint, yeah, it makes sense that Robert Quinn's they're going to cut him. They're not a Super Bowl contender. So from their standpoint, they're like, let's get an extra draft pick and we'll pay whatever, $7 million for a 4th-round pick. You think that makes sense? $7 million to buy a 4th-round pick? Yeah, Ryan Poles got swindled. Doesn't mean Robert Quinn's good. Means from a valuation standpoint, he got swindled. That's all I mean.
Yeah, I disagree with that. If you're going to continue to pay, you got to pay the guy anyway. So what's the difference? I could just as easily make the argument they got a 4th-round pick for free. They weren't going to win with him. They were going to have to pay him anyway. His salary was guaranteed this year. So basically, Howie Roseman just gave him a 4th-round pick that they were not going to get anyway. And I don't know that his 1 sack through the first 6 games was going to do much to help the Bears win games over the second 2/3.
Well, you and I definitely have a difference on what a 4th-round pick is valued. That's, Look at the Bears' history. Look at the Eagles' history. Yeah, you can pick out the outlier. The
Right.
percentages of fourth round picks turning into even a guy who generates double teams. So your other crappy defensive linemen can do something, but they can't do anything, are negligible. Let's put it that way.
He's Johnny Mac. I'm Jody Mac with the Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365. We're heading down. No, he's not. He writes for the Delaware News Journal. I always say Delaware, but he's a Pennsylvania guy just the same. Martin Frank's going to join us next year on Birds 365.